This is the Last of Us podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're back talking about The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 5, Feel Her Love.
Ellie, what? If it gets bad, and we have to make a choice between shooting or running, we run.
Last resort, I got it. Oh, you think that no matter what happens, I'm just going to start firing?
Literally every single time, yes. Don't get angry. You're a little crazy, and that's exciting. That's one of the reasons I love you. But I do want to make it out of here.
You love me?
I know. So tell me again, what's the plan?
Knives or run?
Okay, crazy. Here we go.
Welcome back, fellow survivors, to the 5th episode of Season 2 of The Last of Us, Feel Her Love. I am one of your hosts on TV Podcast Industries, Derek.
Hello there, fellow survivors. Yes, I am your other host for this episode, John. Welcome back, fellow survivors. Fellow whistlers, if there's a few scarry Seraphites out there, as well as, of course, the usual fun guys.
Yes. There is a whole language created around the whistling. In the games, apparently, Naughty Dog had created it specifically so they could know exactly what whistling to use. And we heard it a couple of weeks ago when they were talking to the young girl, member of the Seraphites. They were asking and testing her knowledge of the whistling. So it's kind of cool that there's a whole language based around whistling.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? Well, and loads of sort of real life examples of whistling in different cultures for various different things. I mean, usually you'd go, it's for the, things like sheepdog training, but equally, lots of cultures have developed a whistling language because it was good for communicating over long distances before phones.
Very good. So you could whistle 2 pints of Guinness and a packet of crisps
basically,
to the bar, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. Good. I like it.
I guess it's the pitch; it travels better.
Yeah. Very good. But yes, I just remember from the games being absolutely terrifying every time you walked into an area that looked completely open and then heard the whistling and oh no, we're going to be going up against the Seraphites. And same situation here in this episode, isn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah. But we are going to get into our spoiler-filled discussion about The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 5. If you'd like to send any thoughts on any of the episodes this season, you can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. Just 2 episodes left, so we do want to hear your thoughts before the season is out. But we also will be continuing the second season of our World's End pub quiz later on in the episode. We've been giving out a question on each podcast that we've covered throughout the season so far. Just 2 questions left as well. At the end of the season, you just need to email us with all the correct answers to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, and you could be in with a chance of getting your hands on The Last of Us Part 2 for PlayStation or for PC, or you could get a €50 Amazon voucher, whichever makes sense for you.
Yeah.
If you played the game, then you don't need the game again, right? So...
Well, that's true. So remember to send in your answers at the end of the series when you have all 7 questions, and you can come on in with your 7 correct answers to go into our e-tombola.
That's it.
AKA Google.
Yep. You got the 5th question later on in the episode. And if you missed any questions so far, pop on over to our website at tvpodcastindustries.com, and the questions are all up there in the pub quiz section.
Yes. But let us get into our spoiler-filled discussion of The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 5, Feel Her Love. Derek, who gave us what, when, where, and how?
Well, of course, this is based on the 2020 PlayStation game The Last of Us Part 2 by Neil Druckmann, Hayley Gross, and from game publisher Naughty Dog. This show is written and executive produced by Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann, and this episode once again written for television by Craig Mazin. I'm reliably informed that the next 2 episodes do have additional writing credits, so I haven't been wasting my time having a writing credit in there. I could have just said all episodes written, but no, there are other writers in the next 2 episodes, John.
Okay, excellent.
Which is good to know, yeah. This episode is directed by Stephen Williams. He was a regular director on Lost with over 25 episodes of Lost directed by him in every single season of the show as well. He also directed shows like Person of Interest, The Walking Dead, and Westworld. Yeah. We've discussed him before here on TV Podcast Industry because he did direct 2 episodes of the excellent HBO's Watchmen series. He did episode 3 and episode 6 of that show.
Great stuff,
So yeah, really, really good director with lots of great credentials, and an excellent episode here for The Last of Us too.
Yep, definitely. And seemingly likes to get involved with Jonathan Nolan with Person of Interest and Westworld.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would say, judging by that. But yeah, good stuff. Well, I have to say, really enjoyed this episode.
Absolutely. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for Season 2, Episode 5, Feel Her Love?
Sure. Dina makes a plan to safely get to the Lakehill Hospital to find Abby's ally, Nora. The route is more dangerous than they expected, though, as they are surrounded by multiple intelligent infected stalkers. Luckily, Jesse found their plans at the theatre, and he gets there in time to save them. But as they leave, they are chased down by WLF members and hide out in a local park. Unfortunately, the park is overrun by Seraphites, who capture and ritually kill another member of the WLF. The Seraphites injure Dina with an arrow to the leg, so Ellie finds a way to distract them while Jesse gets her to safety. After escaping the Seraphites, Ellie makes her own way into the Lakehill Hospital without support and locates Nora. She makes a run for it to escape Ellie, ending up down a dead end. Nora must escape to the basement level 2, an area of the hospital closed off after cordyceps became airborne. Ellie catches up to her and has her cornered, but Nora, now infected, refuses to give up any information on Abby's location, and learns that not only is Ellie immune, she knows exactly what Joel did. But Ellie isn't willing to give up and brutally uses a metal bar on Nora's legs, hoping to find a clue to Abby's location before the cordyceps infection takes over Nora's body for good. Yes, no, well, the end did feel a bit like Cluedo.
Mm-hmm.
It was Ellie in the hospital with the lead pipe.
In the basement with the lead pipe.
In the basement, hospital basement with the lead pipe, exactly.
Yeah.
So.
I'm sure we'll get to it as we go through our points, but there's no doubting the connection between Abby and Ellie and their brutality when they're looking to achieve the goal that they're trying to achieve. Ellie here with the metal bar going wild on Nora's legs to get the information out of her. Like she
felt very reminiscent of the golf club on Joel's legs, for sure.
It certainly did. But let's get into our discussion points for the episode, our top moments from the episode. We're going to start out where we always start with point 1, Spores in the hospital. Our prelude scene before the credits roll, where we have Officer Park giving an explanation of what happened to some, we think, Fedra agents in the hospital. Now, we're a little bit confused because there's no time given here as to how long they've been in the hospital, and it's very difficult to tell whether this is 10 years ago, 15 years ago, but it looks like this is Hanrahan who met up with Isaac at the start of last week's episode, and that was 18 years beforehand, and Hanrahan is here questioning Park on what happened to the agents that were in her care.
The timeline is a little unclear here, and it does feel absolutely intentional that it is unclear as to whether it is in the present and has just happened. And so when we see Ellie and Nora in the hospital, that's a recent thing, that the basement has been sealed off, or there is the conversation about this was where some of the first patients were delivered in the basement. So, it could have been a while ago. It's also, I think that, we don't see Hanrahan intercut with Ellie and Dina here in Seattle. So actually you get the opening credits and then you get Seattle Day 2.
Exactly.
So my kind of inference was that wasn't Seattle Day 2, but Seattle before Ellie and Dina had arrived.
Yeah.
But a while before. It may have even just been a year or two. If you think about the timeline with Abby and her group, that was a 5-year period, so it could even have been around then. So the timeline is a little unclear here, and the only reason I say that, I guess, is because to my mind, I'm still there wondering if Hanrahan is this disciple, this prophet that the Seraphites look up to. They have that proclamation of feel her love. And we do see a mural here where that proclamation is there with the drawing of the woman. And that there's a sense of Hanrahan to that painting, that mural on the wall, for me at least. But again, could be all wrong. It might be just conjecture, but I think Hanrahan is really interesting, and I like this opening, you know?
Yeah, and it's interesting, the first time I watched it, I went, oh, well, that's absolutely proof there. This is Hanrahan a couple of weeks maybe, or a couple of days before Ellie and Dina get to the hospital. And when I watched it the second time, I was going, there's nothing in the conversation here that says this was recent, between Hanrahan and Park here. This could have been 10 years ago, could have been 15 years ago, could have been 1 year ago. There's really nothing there, but it makes it feel like it could be a contemporary situation, even though it's not. What's happened here is that, they're trying to clear out the hospital. So if we knew how long they'd held the hospital, maybe it would be something, but, the whole process is talked through. Park says they went there, they cleared out all the top floors, no problem at all, and then they started going down through the basement. The first level of the basement had nothing in it, and then below that, in the basement below, she hears over the radio from what we find out is her son that the cordyceps are growing all across the walls, all across the ceiling, and they're also airborne now, which is a big change from what we've heard of the cordyceps in the TV show right away from the previous season. In the show, the cordyceps have always been pictured differently than they were in the game. They crawl along the ground and they form this mycelial network that we've talked about multiple times. But in the game, you'd walk into a room and you'd see the spores in the air.
Exactly. Know? And the infection has been passed through biting. In the game, you can get it also by breathing in the spores. And I mean, it's a, well-established mechanism in fungus in terms of reproduction, spreading their spores in order to then colonize other locations. So that would be their primary method of reproduction, is to spread their spores. So this is totally in the wheelhouse of the biology of fungus, of the game as well. And it's just, we don't see it here in this moment. We just see the panic. So I like how the kinetics of all of this is done through the sheer panic, even quiet panic of Hanrahan as she's listening to Sergeant Park's description, because she thinks she's going to have to do some kind of court-martial and kill Sergeant Park because she's asking why she's killed some of her own men. And you get this story unfolding of, as you say, them clearing the floors, and then in the end, her hearing her own son sort of really heavy on the breathing, and she's asking him, well, have you been bitten? And he's like, no, they're in the air. And he is the one that orders her to seal them in. So seals them 2 floors below, or 3 floors below the ground floor here. And, you see Hanrahan sort of being quite officious about it. Well, you've done us proud here, your bravery, and sorry for the loss of your son, Leon. But it's, only those who need to know will know, but you've done us a great service by sealing the basement of the hospital. But it also shows the critical importance of the hospital as a facility that they need to keep. And so I like how that terror builds. And as I say, it's more of a quiet terror that comes across Hanrahan's face. When she hears that actually, there's a new method for contracting the infection now, which is, it's airborne, which is really scary when you think of COVID even, and just the number of people contracting COVID with it being airborne.
Absolutely. And I think, something that you probably see more in the game, about this is it's in the dark places, it's in the wet places, it's in the underground places that you go into. So those scary rooms that you have in horror movies, basically, you walk into one of those rooms, you see the spores in the air in front of you, and you need to get your mask on quickly or else you could be overtaken by the infection. So that's quite cool. You're right. Hanrahan does play that really well. The first time she reacts, where something's going on is when she hears the name Leon from Officer Park, and she knows that's her son. So the minute she hears the name Leon, she goes, oh, something really bad must have happened here. So a really interesting conversation to open the episode. I love these moments to kind of set up and establish each of the episodes all the way through the last.
It's a really good little exchange. I mean, even just where she picks up, Hanrahan picks up one of the cigarettes, the rolled cigarettes.
Yeah, that's just after she mentions Leon being involved. Hanrahan just goes, oh God, and then picks up a cigarette knowing this is going to be a bad conversation.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the only thing that's in the scene that could be placing this a long time ago. The fact they still have rolled cigarettes right there. It's unlikely they're going to have that many of those still 20 years on into the apocalypse. I don't know who would be running the tobacco fields at this stage. Unless you found a way to harness the infected. The cigarettes don't last 20 years.
No,
I don't think.
Well, it would be pretty grim.
Pretty grim. Yeah, pretty grim. But that's the opening scene. Let's move on to point number 2. I've just called this exploring the theater, but there's so much more going on here. This is where Dina and Ellie are trying to find their way to the hospital, and we have Dina doing triangulation as Ellie arrives after putting the power on. I just think their conversation is really good fun here. Ellie's absolutely delighted with herself that she's found a way to turn the power on. Dina hardly even notices that's what she's done because she's been working so hard trying to work on this triangulation.
I just love the way it's like natural gas, baby.
Absolutely.
Or liquefied gas, baby. I just love that. It's a great little conversation. The idea that someone wouldn't know what a protractor is, really interesting.
I just really like the where Ellie goes, can I help? No, why? Because I'm so stupid. And he's like, that's not the words I'd use. I'd say non-school oriented.
Yeah, exactly. It really is.
Very good. And then when Dina explains to her what she's doing, Ellie just kind of goes, yeah, I'm just going to explore this theater. You're smart and you're figuring it out. I'm off. But she does explore the theater, and we have another big moment here. And this will probably make more sense as the series goes on for those who haven't played the games, but I think it's just a beautiful scene where we have Ellie walking down, picking up a guitar, and she plays a line from the Pearl Jam song Future Days. We mentioned this back in episode 1, which was called Future Days, episode 1 of season 2. She plays the line saying, if I ever were to leave you, and then stops and can't play any more of it because she's kind of overcome with the connection of that song between, we'll say herself and Joel. We know that Joel taught her how to play guitar, so there is that connection between her and Joel.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, guitars are hugely important in the life of Ellie because, as you say, of what Joel did. But I kind of like how she starts playing, starts to sing along, but just stops like that because, it's one of those moments where we've seen her have that flashback of Abby just, with the sharp end of the golf club. Yeah. And to me, it felt like one of those moments, but this time we just don't see it. But we know that she's having that flashback to that loss. Yeah, maybe not that exact scene, but she's experiencing that flashback. We just don't get to see it. It's like that intimate moment, which is what this is for Ellie. Yeah. And I just thought that was played really, really nicely by Bella Ramsey here in this moment, and just how it was captured. I just thought it was really nice. Yeah. And then that moment's kind of broken because Dina comes in to say that she's managed to plot a way through that can get them to Lakehill Hospital. Yeah. And again, I kind of like this conversation where, she's like, they're patrolling here and she's drawing it overlaid on the map, but there's this gap in their patrols, and there's a huge building that they're not patrolling. Yeah. And she's like, Ellie's like, that big ass thingy. Yeah. What is it? And why are they not patrolling it? But I like how the logic of Dina and Ellie work together.
Absolutely.
Because Ellie is, in a sense, is very good at the combat, the tactical on-field stuff. So is Dina, but she's also really good then at the strategy and the planning side of it. And I think the two of them work really, really well. And then, the logic dictates is, well, they're probably keeping a wide berth of it because in a sense it's already protecting that part that they're not protecting because it's filled more than likely with infected. They just don't know quite the infected that's in there. They know they're going to find something, they just don't know what.
Yeah, but they have guessed that it's very likely there are infected inside. And that's the reason why it's all being kept clear. And you kind of hear them going, well, we're going to make a stupid decision.
Reckless.
It's going to be pretty reckless. There's something else that I also really like about this conversation where we have Dina explaining the reason why she knows so much about the wolves is that they cannot keep off their walkie-talkies. They keep explaining everything that's going on, where everybody is. She even knows what location Nora is in. She knows she's on the first floor upstairs. She's like, how would you possibly know something like that? Well, just they keep talking to each other all the time. And they infer from this more about the Seraphites. And this is I think this is a really good way of getting all that information out about these two factions. You have the Seraphites, who are effectively like Mormons. They are a religious cult, kind of, and they also don't depend on the technologies of today. And you have the wolves, who have all the technology that was left behind by Fedra. So the two different factions there are working very differently in the environment. So I love that they've inferred this just from listening in to the wolves and what they're saying.
She says it's like they know no one's listening.
Exactly.
So they're just very open about their communications.
Yeah. And she says, and they didn't even care that we stole their walkie-talkie because she knows the Seraphites probably, if they did get their hands on a walkie-talkie, they would smash it because they don't deal with anything to do with technology. Exactly. So I love how it's all inferred, and it's some extra layers on each of these factions without having to overly explain it all. Nobody gets a handbook and nobody is telling them exactly what's happening. They're learning it for themselves through these investigations, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. But they do decide to head towards the warehouse, even though, Ellie says, well, if we leave now, it's going to be dark before we get there, which is, a reckless move. And it's like, well, let's be reckless. Let's go and do it.
That's what they needed,
But on the way, then they see this other massacre of Seraphites here above this mural that we mentioned before, where it's like you have the mural of their prophet saying, feel her love, and underneath, feel this bitch, effectively. And there's a group of dead Seraphites.
Executed Seraphites underneath. This is a message that they're leaving for all the other Seraphites in the city. This is an ongoing war. We heard that last week in the episode. There's a war going on between these two factions. No one particularly has the upper hand. You would expect that the wolves would have the upper hand because they have technology, but it seems like the Seraphites are also taking ownership of areas and killing and murdering all the way through them. So this is another moment where the wolves have executed them to leave a message to the rest of the Seraphites.
Yeah, and it kind of freaks Ellie out because she starts going, we shouldn't have come. You're pregnant, effectively. This is really silly that we've actually taken this decision
and this risk.
But in the end, this kind of steels Dina to say, in a sense, like she brings it back to her first kill story, and she goes, we've all got one of these, but in a sense, they don't matter anymore. What matters is here and now.
Yeah.
And if I die, it will be on me. It's not your fault. I'm here for you. Helping you helping me now, irrespective of what our, first kill story is, I kind of liked how that sort of worked between the two of them as well.
I did, and I'm a big fan of zombie shows and zombie movies and games and everything. Obviously, this is why I love The Last of Us and why I love The Walking Dead, and it was something that I always found a bit of a shame when they moved on from people telling the stories of how they got to this point in their lives. We're 20 years into the apocalypse here. We know that everybody has lost someone in the past. We mentioned it before, actually, about Dina, not knowing that this was coming up. We mentioned that she'd kind of latched on to Joel as a as another family member for her. She's gone through this experience of losing Joel. We learn about that in this episode. Yeah. She is just as angry as Ellie is. Ellie, obviously, we know the relationship that they had, but we see a lot of Dina's anger coming out here. She wants to do this because she's angered by what they did to Joel.
And no matter what he did, he didn't deserve what they put him through. And exactly. It's actually, I mean, it's a strange kind of sort of mixing of justice and vengeance, because in her first kill story, she's like, if things were different and I hadn't been there when he had done what he had done to my mother and sister, and maybe he had killed me, or if I came back too late and he still wasn't there and I didn't surprise him, and then surprise him even more when I actually put a bullet in his belly, and he had escaped, then I would be tracking him down until I had found him to kill him. So, and like, that's the kind of link to what Ellie is doing, but it's also to say that it's a justice thing, even though it might come across as vengeance.
Yeah.
But ultimately, there's a justice element here, I feel, that Dina has in particular.
Yeah, I think everybody knows the connection between Ellie and Joel, and when Ellie stood up to make that speech in front of the town of Jackson saying, this isn't vengeance, this is justice, I think Dina was totally on her side, even in that speech, even though we know Ellie was just trying to do anything she could to get people to go with her.
Yeah.
I think Dina was totally on her side. Whatever she said, she was going to go with her to do this. So, and she's doing it for her own reasons, is what she's saying to Ellie here. You can't send me home, or if you want me to go home because it's causing problems, I'll go home. It's not your responsibility. If you will allow me to stay, or if you're okay with me staying, I want to stay, kind of thing. So Ellie does say, keep going. So they continue on.
Exactly.
Before we finish this at this point, I do want to kind of comment on the theatre itself and the scene. The theatre was filmed in Vancouver. The whole most of the show is filmed in Vancouver in Canada, and this is a real theatre that they used and mocked it up to look like the game. They've used a bit of CGI and they've used a bit of set design to make it look like the theatre in the game, and it's a place where you spend a lot of time in the game. I remember coming back to it quite a few times, and you explore it quite a lot. It really felt exactly like the theatre. It's like there was I think when we watched it first, I went, did they just 3D print the whole thing in real life? Because that's what it looks like. It looks different. It's not exactly the same, but they've done such a great job making it feel like the location that you spend a lot of time in. So I just wanted to comment on that, because they don't always do one for one with the locations, but you know, the scenes in Seattle itself, when you see Dina and Ellie walking down the streets in Seattle, and also them going into the theater, I thought were really like how great the game looks.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But I think on to point number 3, it's stalkers in the factory. So we have the stalker infected here, the intelligent ones. Again, this whole scene is really, really well done. Just how they make their way through the warehouse, sneaking their way through. I like that there's then this whole thing from Dina, shooting is last resort. We run before we shoot. What's the plan again? I like there's a little talk of that she goes, I like that little bit of craziness in you,
you're a little crazy,
a little bit of danger,
Yep.
But I just kind of love how as they move their way through, it gets more sort of suspicious in a sense and awkward for them. It's like, okay, we're expecting to see infected here.
Yeah.
It's like, Dina says, well, good news is nothing's come bursting through that open door after us getting into the warehouse. Now, it might do. Let's go and check it out.
Yeah.
They're moving along. There's no clicking. They were rationalizing it would be a few sort of stray clickers or infected, but that they've taken out before, so there's no real issue. And I like that it starts to be more precarious as they walk through, that feeling of like, well, hang on, I didn't think we were going to get this far without seeing something.
Exactly.
And then like they just say,
why was that door open in the first place? Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's kind of like, can you hear anything? And they stop, and then it's like, no, nothing there. So they keep on going. And then Ellie sees, a torso of a dead human on the floor. and then they see one of the stalker infected that jumps down, and this is the first time that Dina's seen that, and she's like, "Did you see that? What's that doing?" And you have the explanation about the supermarket from Ellie, but then I love then as they lift their head up, there's two there, and it's like, you know, they've just made this plan. That well, they're sneaky, they're intelligent. The one in the supermarket just outside Jackson, you know, tried to flank me, so we need to flank them. They look up, there's 2 or 3, and then they come back down, and then they realize that they're also behind them, and it almost felt like, I don't know, Pride of Lions, and the eyes reflecting in the lights. It was just so well done, how it became more and more precarious.
It's so scary when you see the eyes reflecting like cat's eyes, effectively. You know, they're in a really bad situation. It's like they have drawn them into their kill zone, which is probably what they have exactly done, you know. But also, one little thing that came out there as well, Ellie tells Dina that she got bitten by that infected, the stalker, back in the supermarket. Dina didn't realize that, so she didn't realize how dangerous that situation really was. She thought, oh, Ellie triumphed. She'd beaten this new type of intelligent infected. She didn't realize that if it had been anybody else in that situation, they would be dead. It's not just that Ellie was lucky, it was that Ellie got bitten and isn't infectable, effectively. So I just really liked that moment when she's going, you know, they're sneaky, they're going to chase it down. Whichever one it goes after, the other one sneak up and kill it. It did bite me last time, which just amps up the tension. And then you see there's more and more and more of them.
And I think it's really good because you see that spooked look in Dina's expression as she's realizing the situation. You know, that's really good. You see the terror on it. You know, she runs to the little caged area which, you know, she manages to get to, but she realizes that they're kind of just persistent. They're after her. They're ripping out the metal links and so on.
They're strong.
So I really like that. You have Ellie effectively doing as best she can against a lot more of these, you know, intelligent stalkers, and ultimately then gets rescued by Jesse, and the same for Dina as well. So I like that. You know, this is Jesse, but you don't quite know who the hand is from. It could have been a wolf, could have been you know, just. But it's Jesse. And we hear also then that Tommy is also in town with him, that they arrived the day before and then split up to cover more ground. So we hear that Tommy is with him. We also hear, just, you know, Jesse is kind of to the rescue here. But, you know, he's kind of a bit angry at Ellie. And I like that, you know, she says, well, we were doing pretty good. We don't need you. And he's like, you were doing pretty good, were you? Until when? And she's like, until we weren't.
It's like,
so good.
Like, she knows they'd be dead.
Yeah,
she knows she cannot play that card with Jesse. You know, he is angry as hell for the two of them going away on their own. He's angry as hell at the fact that Dina's been put in this danger. You know, do we know for definite that Dina hasn't told Jesse that she's pregnant at this stage? We know the two of them got back together in the 3 months that Ellie was in hospital. So, is Jesse worried about, you know, his girlfriend, who's now possibly the mother of his child, being out in Seattle, possibly going to be killed because of following Ellie? So, he's probably pretty annoyed.
I mean, the thing is, as well, they're not out of danger. I mean, Jesse's really clear, you know, let's get out of here and then we go home.
Yes.
Like, we're going back to Jackson. But they've got to escape still from the infected stalkers. And then once they get outside, they are being sort of chased down by then the WLF.
Exactly.
And make it into a park, which then the WLF go, we're not going in there. You're just like going, like Ellie's like, oh, great. Or what she says something is just perfectly kind of timed, really. It's like out of the frying pan into the fire, effectively.
Basically,
and it's just such a good kind of aspect to it because it is this factionalized war between Seraphites and wolves, but equally there's this base layer of like the fungal apocalypse.
Exactly. Yeah, and this episode really does have it all for me, and we're not at the end. Yes, there's still some other bits to go, but it really has absolutely everything. It has massive scenes versus the infected, where we have, like the one we have here with the stalkers. We have a massive scene with the wolves chasing them down, and we have the Seraphites as well. So we have all three of the big factions that are against Ellie and Dina coming down and doing it all. I also love, before we close out this point, I also love the fact that Dina plays The Last of Us the way I play The Last of Us. She knew she was going into a building full of infected, had about 4 bullets left in her gun, used them all, and didn't kill any of the infected, and almost died herself. That's exactly how I played The Last of Us. So I don't know how we got through that game.
Well, thankfully, because
Jesse came in and saved us.
No, it's not real, and we could die and respawn.
Yes, and get more
lots of respawn
and get more bullets next time.
Indeed. But let us get on to our point 4, because I talked about Party in the Park. Yes, it is the Seraphites in the park.
Oh, yeah.
Not really a party, but this is where at least Ellie and Dina learned that the grisly sight they saw at the broadcast building was down to the Seraphites. I found this really kind of quite affecting, because I don't think I've seen a disembowelment come across so
brutal. Yeah.
Well, brutal graphically, and I mean, this is after watching Shogun, where they're doing seppuku, and so there's a lot of guts spilling out there.
Yeah.
I think it's the nature of the person being hung up as well, and just the jerking motion of the body. Like, it was just captured, this ritual killing. You know, I mean, the guy who's got the kind of sickle, and who's opening up, you know, he's taking his time here. He's opening up. The wolf is pleading for his life. He's saying, I can tell you the positions and so on. And he's like,
Isaac's plan.
He's like, your words don't mean anything. Like this, I don't care. I've not captured you. I'm not doing this to get information. This is a ritualized killing.
Yeah. You've walked into our place. This is ours. Yeah.
He guts the wolf, and it's really quite brutal.
Well, did you notice that with this, what he's doing with the sickle is he's holding the sickle up, and the Seraphite behind him is actually pulling the rope to raise him and cut into it. Like, it's brutal, but also compare it to what happened last week with Isaac torturing the Seraphite to get information about what the Seraphite plan was. The Seraphite there was telling him, you're going to lose this war because every day a wolf joins us and nobody ever goes and joins you from the Seraphite side. That was his argument last week, and he wouldn't give up information about the Seraphite's plan. Here we have a wolf who's been captured by the Seraphites telling them, I will give you everything. I'll give you the position of all of the men. I'll tell you what Isaac's plan is. Please don't kill me. Please don't kill me. And they murder him. They are very, very brutal. They are zealots in their belief that they have the one true way, and anybody on the opposite side is not worthy of life anymore. They're talking about it as if they're freeing him to see their prophet. You know, they are absolutely brutal and a very scary sect of this society after the apocalypse, really. Yeah. And as I said, you know, right at the start, the whistling of the Seraphites to guide their people around in the darkness in this park in the game, that is really terrifying. I love how it's laid out in here. We hear them whistle just before that arrow lands in Dina's leg, and then they start whistling to indicate that there are people in the park that need to be gotten. And then the Seraphites are now on the trail of Dina and Jesse and Ellie as well.
Yeah, I mean, actually, just like Ellie's expression when she sees the gutting, and then suddenly the Seraphites are aware that they're there and are being watched, and you have Ellie effectively drawing them away from Jesse and Dina, because she's gotten an arrow in the leg. But there's a great moment as well where the arrows are flying round, and there's one with a crossbow fires, and you see it whistling. You see Ellie ducking, you know, to avoid it, and it's just really well done.
That's so cool.
And ultimately, you know, she does the hide in the hollow trunk maneuver, which is always good.
Absolutely.
And is able from there then to see, as they've kind of dispersed looking in other directions for her, that she sees in front of her the white building of Lakehill Hospital.
Yes. She sees the sign that she is going to follow to reach her real destination. We're going to presume that Jesse got Dina the hell out of there, right?
I think so, yeah.
Presume so.
I'm assuming so, yes, yeah. But let's hope, hey.
And let's get on to our final point, point number 5. Beating Nora, I guess, is what we've got. We knew the premise of this episode was that they needed to get to Nora. That was the first and only link that we have to Abby's group, is that they know where Nora is. So I must say I kind of liked this, that they didn't spend too much time on the interim in between Ellie knowing that she has to get to the hospital and finding her way into Nora. Yeah, because, they had a plan. They knew that they would get to the hospital eventually and they needed to get in there. There's probably, you could do another 5 or 6 minutes of Ellie scrambling around in the darkness trying to get into the hospital, but she gets there, is the point.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Like, I just like the fact that she, just has to navigate Bonnie the dog. Like, we had to. The dogs were a nightmare for me because I kept getting mauled by them. It's just that nice little touch that, dogs are good guard dogs, really. They can sniff it out. So, they did cover her, having to get in, but ultimately we get the confrontation between Ellie and Nora, really quickly. And, it was great, but I have to say I was just completely transfixed down in the basement, by all the mushrooms, this cathedral of fungi, effectively. Yeah. In the same way as the sort of mycelia sort of network coming out of the nose and the kiss in season 1. Yeah. There was just something really, beautifully horrible, sort of like, Geiger's pictures of Alien, the Alien and all that. There's something kind of...
From the movie Aliens,
from the movie Aliens. Yeah. Something kind of beautifully disturbing by the fact that the people who were infected were still alive and breathing out the spores. So we see the Leon L. Parks. So we see him. And that's, again, around the timeline, it's like, well, if it was 15 years ago, wouldn't he be dead? But I can see that they would keep him alive, like, in a sense, they do with the ants, the zombie ants that they talk, long enough for the spores, but here they want him to breathe because it pushes, it's like venting it out. And you just see this breathing out of the spores. And I thought it was like so well done. Really kind of disturbing.
So creepy,
and creepy in how it was done. But I was kind of slightly transfixed by it. And you see the air anyway heavy with spores, like you get in the game with the light hitting them from the torch.
Exactly.
Really nicely done. But yeah, I thought this was really fantastic, like set design, like how it was just played out. I kind of felt like they were almost like those, those room air fresheners that you hit just to get the little spray.
Like the Glade ones. Yeah.
Exactly.
Fill up your room with the Centus cordyceps.
Exactly.
Just close your mouth and wear a mask.
Cream of mushroom soup.
You're right that they are. It's such a beautifully put together scene. And this is after Nora has effectively gotten away from Ellie. Yeah. She's found herself backed into a corner and uses the way out to go into the lift shaft and get herself down to basement 2. Now, to come back to the scene at the beginning of the episode, what we heard Hanrahan tell Park was only essential personnel, only the smallest number of essential personnel will know what's down there. So in the intervening period, Nora may not have learned what happened. Whatever it is, maybe it happened 20 years before she arrived or 10 years before Nora arrived there, or maybe she just isn't one of the people in the know. So did she know that she was going to be going into a basement full of that? She tells Ellie when Ellie catches up to her that you've killed us, we're both dead.
Yeah, exactly.
But we're not sure whether she knew that she was taking Ellie. Well, why would she? Why would she know that she's definitely taking Ellie to an area full of spores?
It's an interesting choice that she... whether she was expecting to go down in that lift shaft rather than actually going up, because you see it kind of... the cable run through and it takes her down. Yeah. Maybe she was looking to climb up.
Could have,
and make her way up rather than down, but she ends off falling down the lift shaft.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the main problem here for Nora.
Yeah.
I mean, Nora's gonna have to face someone with a gun, so would be shot, but so she may just thought, well, I'll take my chances. But as I say, I think she was looking to try and go up a floor rather than necessarily go down, because when she's run through and she can't open that door and she's just there, she knows she's become infected.
Yeah.
She knows she's only got a certain amount of time left before she turns. And she does say, you killed us both. Not, So I think she knew about it.
Okay.
That the basement was off limits.
Yeah. Well, she is a doctor. So, yeah.
Also, she may have known that it was airborne.
Yeah.
Because, again, if it's in this one area, it might be in other areas. So a bit like with the infected stalkers, that they know about certain areas where it's kind of, you keep that wide berth, really. Yeah,
I think the story is that you don't go down there because that's where the original infected from 2003 were put by the original hospital. The original doctors put all of the infected down on basement 1. So maybe they've just maintained that story saying don't go down there. What's it? Don't dead open inside from The Walking Dead, so don't go in there. That's the area where they're being kept. We haven't cleared that area out. She's a doctor. She's staying upstairs. So I just wonder if there was anything to that. But Nora herself is a very strong character. When Ellie came in first, I thought that she was going to apologize for everything she'd done. She said, the brutal way in which she died, someone like you shouldn't have seen that, shouldn't have been there for it. And then immediately afterwards says the little bitch got what he deserved. So she is totally on the side of Abby. She totally believes what Abby did was right. She is the one from that episode, from episode 2, who sat on Ellie's back, kept Ellie pressed to the ground while they murdered Joel right in front of her. So Nora is not a great person either. Or at least in this case, she's totally aligned with Abby. When we were watching the show from Ellie's perspective, she's absolutely on that other side, right? But I do think she was trying to get away. I think you're right. I think she was trying to get away in this situation and ended off in the worst place she possibly could. And it seems like she's trying not to give up information to Ellie about where Abby is, but Ellie's going to go as far as Abby did with Joel. She takes out a metal bar when she realizes that Nora is not going to instantly tell her where Abby is, takes out a metal bar and just bathed in that red light from the emergency lighting. It just takes that metal bar and starts breaking Nora's legs.
Great atmosphere to have the red light, the whole scene bathed in that red emergency lighting. It was really good. And again, it's just that atmosphere between these two characters, like you say, Ellie effectively reflecting what Abby did at the ski resort. Nora, saying you've killed us both, did I? This realization from Nora that after she's telling Ellie what Joel did, that it was Abby's father who was the doctor who was shot in the head, and that Ellie is the immune girl, she didn't quite believe, but that Ellie knows what Joel did here as well. When she's being told about it by Nora, she's I know. Now, whether that's just bravado, I don't know yet. Because she had her suspicions that it's just being confirmed here. But you have this focused Ellie asking, where's Abby? Where is she? As she keeps beating Nora's legs with the lead pipe. And so... this is shows a brutal side of Ellie for sure. A uncompromising side of Ellie. She is immune. She knows that the spores aren't going to turn her. She knows that that can help you if you're her ally, like Dina. But in the case here, it doesn't matter if they've gone into a spore-filled basement, because she's okay. Now in the game, I think Nora has a mask because that's the main way that the spores can get past, or one of them, other than being bitten. Then people tend to have those kind of respirators. But I think she loses it, and
something like that.
So It's a slightly different, but it's just really, really well done. I thought the atmosphere generated in this basement, what with this cathedral-like fungal structures, the alien type, it is almost like Aliens, where they're all strung up on the walls.
I'm certain they took some inspiration for this scene.
I'm sure they did. And just breathing out spores, and then sort of the brutality of Ellie on Nora. It's just, it's brutal, but it's such a great sequence through.
It is. And I suppose as the episodes go on, it's really interesting that some of the things that you may think are big reveals are just going by. We're not waiting for a confrontation with Abby where Abby tells Ellie that Joel's the one that shot my dad in the head. Of course I was going to go out and track him down. Like, that's what I expected, certainly in the original story. Having it being told by another character here, and Ellie's response to it being, well, I know that. I'm here to kill you, basically. I'm here to kill you, and I'm here to kill Abby, and I'm here to kill everybody else that was involved. That's a big twist on what I thought was going to be the big moment when Ellie eventually gets to Abby and finds out that Joel wasn't as good as she thought he was. Well, no, she knew exactly who Joel was, and she's here to take revenge on the people that did it to him, that killed him.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Yeah. And speaking of Joel, the episode ends with Ellie waking up on a beautiful day with birdsong outside the window, and Joel arriving saying, "Hey, kiddo."
Yeah, it's all very Disney that moment.
It is. Is that what really happened, and all that stuff beforehand hasn't happened? Just a perfect, happy day?
No,
I don't think so.
But it's interesting.
Nice
they kind of have that sort of moment at the end. I guess it's, well done, kiddo. One down.
Maybe.
I don't know.
To me, it was just really to show the contrast between where Ellie was with Joel and where she is now, bathed in the red light and smashing in the legs of Nora, So we'll see. Hopefully Pedro Pascal back for...
Well, Nora's not going to go exploring anymore.
No, she will not.
No.
Yeah, I don't think she's going very far now. We'll see how that plays out next week on next week's episode. But that's it for our points for the episode. Any notes from yourself, John?
No, I've got no notes. Derek, what about yourself?
A couple of quick notes. Not only did we get that moment of Ellie playing the Pearl Jam song Future Days early on in the episode closes with Present Tense by Pearl Jam as well. Just wanted to mention it because Pearl Jam have also released a Last of Us EP this week of all the songs of theirs that have featured on the show. I think it's 4 or 5 songs. So,
excellent.
Hey, we love Pearl Jam here.
Absolutely.
So kind of cool to have this connection directly with The Last of Us as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I also wanted to mention the actress who played Nora so excellently in this episode, Tati Gabrielle, was also in the Uncharted movie with Tom Holland, which was based on a Naughty Dog game, and also starred Mark Wahlberg, who ruined it. But she's also the main character in the next Naughty Dog game, Interstellar: The Heretic Prophet, which was just announced last year. So
that looks kind of interesting.
Looks very cool. Yeah, a little space set game, a massive space set game.
I like
from
space games.
Yeah, it's going to be cool.
Mass Effect.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's going to be like that.
This is more like Bounty Hunter.
Yeah.
In space, isn't it? That's what it seems like. So very much looking forward to that.
As long as it's not like the other space game, Returnal, I won't mind.
Returnal was fantastic. We've played about 40 hours of that game and haven't gotten past the first section. so we got our money's worth, I guess, in time played, but frustration of that bloody game.
Difficult.
Let's hope Naughty Dog do the same as they always do and tell a great story and allow us to get to the end of the game. That's what I'd like to do.
Exactly.
But it's just really interesting because, she was in the movie Uncharted. She was seen there by Craig Mazin and by Neil Druckmann. And then not only does she appear in the TV show of The Last of Us, she's also in the next Naughty Dog game. So she's made the right connections.
Great
there
stuff.
As well.
Yeah,
excellent.
Definitely.
Excellent. John, overall, what did you think of The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 5, Feel Her Love?
I really enjoyed this. It felt brutal all the way through, which I think this world does. Yes, it can be interspersed with moments of loveliness, like Ellie supporting Dina, Dina supporting Ellie. and so on. But I would give this 5 spore breathers out of 5. Like mouth breathers, I guess. But, but with added mushrooms, mushroom spores. I love the opening with Hanrahan and Sergeant Park. I think that really set up actually the end bit where Ellie is chasing after Nora to get, her first revenge kill, essentially. And I just thought the whole sequence was sort of eerily and disturbingly beautiful, with the fungus sort of cathedral-like structures, the humans caught within those structures, breathing out spores, and sort of that terrifying play that you see from Hanrahan at the start around that. Really good. As you have the return of the infected stalkers, again, really terrifying proposition. And you have the Seraphites, a terrifying proposition. So all this stuff shows, Seattle is hugely, hugely dangerous. I'm really glad to see Jesse sort of come in to the rescue. That's like in the games. And I hope we do get to see him and Dina in the next episode and how that plays out. Again, we know Tommy is now in Seattle, but I just think there's moments of, I guess the brutality of this world is captured so well. Yet the remaining humanity is there as well, or not, depending on how it goes. I'm still there with my theory that Hanrahan is just the prophet of the Seraphites, just that mural. Don't know, I thought it caught something of Hanrahan's features. So I'm really looking forward to, there's only 2 episodes left. I'm really looking forward to the last 2 episodes here. So for me, 5 spore breathers out of 5.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'd be about the same with you. It's just an exceptional series, and this episode particularly was really, really good. Again, I loved going through Seattle and seeing all of the different threats that are in this world. And even if it wasn't for this mission that they're on to wreak revenge on the death of Joel, can you imagine living in this world? And this is what you would pass through if you went through Seattle. You have the Seraphites, the infected, and the wolves as well, all around you at all times. This world is terrifying to live in, even if you're not on a revenge mission. So yeah, absolutely love it. Really, just capturing what I love about this story. Yeah,
excellent stuff. I think with all this horror, we do need to wet our whistle.
Yes.
Let us head on over, fellow quizzers and fellow survivors, to The Last of Us World's End Pub Quiz. We're on episode 5, so we have question 5 for you. The question is, what band does Pinnacle present at the theatre based on the remaining letters on the marquee? So we will give points for either the name of a band or the remaining letters that hint at that band.
Yes. I think we know. I think we've guessed what band is supposed to be on there, but there's a couple of letters missing. You don't need to guess the letters if you don't want to guess the letters. Just give us the name that you see on the marquee of the theatre. John, do you want to give us that question one more time?
Yes, what band does Pinnacle present at the theatre based on the remaining letters on the marquee?
Fantastic. That's our 5th question of 7 at the end of the season. If you get all the correct answers into us, to feedback at tvpodcastindustries.com, you could be with a chance of getting your hands on The Last of Us Part 2 or a Amazon voucher.
Yes. Up next, some feedback from our fellow survivors.
Yeah, we got some feedback over at our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries. John, do you want to take the first one?
Sure. Denise Lardy said, expletive deleted. A bit of whiplash as the dots connected and the ending. I know it's labelled a spoiler post, but I feel guilty not being vague. Did you all who played the game know about the Seraphites Messiah? Thanks, Denise.
Yeah, it's a bit of a surprise seeing Pedro Pascal back in that ending, and obviously, I'm not too sure which one is the biggest spoiler at the end of the episode. But yeah, Ellie going pretty wild with the iron bars. Also, I guess, pretty spoilery as well. I don't think people were expecting her to go that brutal on Nora to get the information of where Abby is at the end of the episode. But yeah, a bit of a surprise to have a big bright moment right at the end of the episode. Maybe that's the one that's more spoilery. But don't worry about it. In the spoiler posts, all you need to do is just mark a little space if you do want to talk about something spoilery. Most people don't go into them if they haven't seen the episode. Yeah. But what do you think, John? Which do you think is the bigger shock at the end of the episode? Ellie's reaction or...
What's the Seraphites Messiah?
We'll talk about that in a second.
Oh, okay.
Ellie's reaction or the return of Pedro Pascal at a bright summery moment?
No, I think it's Ellie. I think that's the more shocking thing. I think the other is clearly another time, a flashback. So, you know, for me, that's kind of looking back, which is fine.
Yeah.
But it's how Ellie has taken on Abby's mantra, you know, and it's a reflection of Abby here on Nora, equally as violent and unforgiving. So, that was the bigger shock, I think.
Yeah, I think also with Nora believing that Abby was right in what she did in the way that she said that to Ellie about, he got what he deserved, basically. I think Ellie's probably going to go pretty wild, and Nora as well. As for us who played the games, do we know about the Seraphites Messiah? It's talked about in the games. There is the idea that there is the savior, the person that gave the Seraphites their guidance and who they follow. Is there a Messiah in the game? Not really. And I don't think there is in the show either. They're just talking about the person that set it all up.
I presume they're meaning the prophet. I mean, they've called it prophet.
Yes.
But yeah, it's more Messiah. I mean, I think the thing is, for me, with the game, it's like, it depends what you pick up. And I don't necessarily think I had the full backstory of Seraphites. I was too busy trying to avoid being hit by their arrows to get through a particular location. But obviously you have their village as well. But even then, you're kind of sneaking all the way through it and so on. So sometimes those things get a bit lost because the thing you're focusing on is what's my route through this zone without getting killed again for the fourth time.
And you pick up notes and you get to read things that fill in some of the backstory, and sometimes you don't read the right notes, so sometimes you don't get all the backstory as well.
Or you don't read the notes. I mean, I collected notes but didn't necessarily read them all. Others you get from snippets of the conversations being had as you're hidden. So, I mean, it's kind of... It's a bit more potluck, I think, sometimes in the game as to what you get, unless it's absolutely, on a plate. Yeah,
but also, I'd say with the TV show, they're really focusing in on certain things you need to know. Like, for example, when they're sacrificing this wolf in this episode, when all the Seraphites are standing around, it does feel like they're delivering him to heaven or whatever it is, to the afterlife, where they're saying he will now feel her love. It's almost like they all have this belief that even though they're brutally killing this guy, that he'll be in a better place afterwards, and he's going to their savior, just like their savior died. It's something like that. But there's loads more backstory, and I think the show will probably give a much more condensed version of that than the game would over the course of its 40 or so hours that you could play and read all of these notes. But we were aware that the Seraphites had a leader or a savior that they were taking instruction from, and that savior was gone. Yeah,
exactly. Good stuff. Thanks, Denise.
Absolutely. Thanks, Denise. And another piece of feedback came in from Corey Garron, who says, maybe I'm being a bit nitpicky, but I preferred Nora falling through the floor as opposed to purposely going down the elevator to basement 2. But I guess she might not have known exactly why it was sealed off. You'd think they'd have sealed off the elevator doors, though, too, even if the elevator was stuck between floors. What did they have sealed off? Was it the stairways? Thanks, Corey. They sealed off the stairways. They make a comment that the reason why they haven't sealed off the elevators is because they are stuck between floors. But actually, I know what you're talking about when she falls through the floor in the game, but if you noticed when she got into the elevator, it looks like she's actually just trying to use the elevator shaft. I think you mentioned this, John, when we were talking it through, and the elevator itself falls from beneath her. So it's a similar effect.
Yeah,
it does push her down to basement 2. I don't think she's actually intending to go there. She's just backed into a corner and using the shaft to get out.
Agreed. But the explanation I was doing with the whole elevator shaft and the elevator carriage was basically the same as Corey. Like, no one would go down there if they knew what was in store for them. No one would choose to do that. And she knew what was down there. Maybe not the whole thing, but she knew that she was being infected. As she sat there, she says to Ellie, "You've killed us both," not knowing that she's immune.
See, I took that as her saying, because Ellie pushed her to that situation, Ellie's responsible for getting them both infected. Not that Nora knew that she was going to be getting infected by going down there. But again, that's maybe a bit pedantic.
She seems to know, and I think it is the question: if you're faced with going down there. And not, even though you know Ellie's behind you with a gun, but you also know that you've just ran past people telling them, shoot her, that you wouldn't choose to go down there. So I think she was trying to escape upwards, and it became unstable and fell down, bringing her down. But I think it would have been clearer and cleaner. I do get what Corey is saying here, that actually her falling through a floor that has been rotting for X number of years, although it's probably concrete, so again, it might not be. But, that just would have made that she didn't have a choice in the matter.
And I think this is what happened. I think she tried to get through the elevator shaft and the elevator fell down from underneath her. So I think it's actually accomplishing the same thing. But to your point, because the floor is probably concrete in this hospital, falling through a wooden floor probably isn't the situation that would have happened here. So trying to make it a little bit more realistic. Just reminds me of something that we actually got wrong when we originally recorded John on that opening segment. One thing that we missed in the conversation between Hanrahan and Sergeant Park, one of the things that we missed there is actually one of them says that Isaac isn't at the hospital because he's dealing with this breach of the treaty between the Seraphites and the wolves. So it probably is taking place much closer to the current timeline than we were thinking it was when we were originally podcasting. So it's just one dropped line. Now it could be years ago, it could be a week ago, but it is specifically referencing the battle effectively between the Seraphites and the wolves again. So I think we'd mentioned something about them possibly being Fedra or possibly being 10 years ago, but I don't think it is now after seeing that scene again. But just wanted to mention it since Corey's talking about those moments as well. Great stuff. Thanks so much, Corey, for your feedback.
Yeah, thanks, Corey. Great to get your thoughts on the episode.
Absolutely. Keep them coming in as we get to the final couple of episodes of Last of Us. Thanks so much for joining us for this week's chat all about The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 5. We'll be back next week, of course, with the penultimate episode of The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 6.
Yes, thank you so much, fellow survivors, for joining us as we discussed Episode 5 of Last of Us. Until next time, though, keep watching, keep listening, and of course, keep surviving.
Bye.
Bye.